echoes of the heart. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, leaving the scent of wet earth and fading leaves in the air as Tori locked her car. She felt the weight of the years pressing down, every small detail sharpening her memories. Her footsteps echoed faintly as she walked beside Eva, who linked her arm through Tori's with the same ease they might have shared all those years ago. Inside the venue, a band played softly in the corner, the same familiar faces moving in loose circles around the room. Nostalgia wrapped around them, a mix of laughter and whispers filling the space. Tori was conscious of the eyes that turned their way, some with curious looks, some with surprise, and a few with the old glimmer of recognition from high school. Eva steered them toward a quieter corner of the room, past a cluster of people taking selfies and catching up, to where they could talk without the buzz of the crowd. Her expression softened as she looked at Tori, brushing a loose strand of hair from her own face. "So," she said, a gentle humor dancing in her voice, "how does it feel being back in this place? Is it everything you expected?" Tori smirked. "Expected? I didn't expect to come at all. Thought I'd leave those memories in a dusty box under the bed." "Maybe I was hoping you'd be here," Eva said, a slight hesitation in her tone. "I mean, after everything. I hoped we'd get a chance to talk, clear the air. High school was a long time ago, but I think about it sometimes." Tori took a steadying breath. "I do too. And I'm sorry for everything that happened. I wanted to tell you it was me, that I was the one leaving those notes. I thought maybe you'd understand, but when they started appearing everywhere, I panicked." Eva reached out and gave Tori's hand a reassuring squeeze. "I understand now, at least. I had no idea who you were, and after that, well, I was scared too. I'd have never let those notes go public if I'd known. You meant a lot to me, even back then, Tori." The words left Tori stunned. She'd built walls around those memories, cementing them with hurt and regret, but here they were, both older, a little wiser, perhaps, and more willing to let the past go. Eva released her hand, leaning back with a nostalgic smile. "It's funny, the things we carry. I think I've kept every one of those notes. For a long time, they were a little reminder that someone saw me as more than just, well, all the high school things. They meant more to me than you know." As the night went on, they shared stories, recalling the awkwardness, laughter, and small triumphs of their teenage years. Slowly, their guard fell, and the connection they'd once shared rekindled, like embers warming under a gentle breeze. Diana, Eva's bodyguard, would occasionally pop by to check in, sending them both into fits of laughter over her protective antics. Before they knew it, they were back out in the parking lot, the reunion over, but their conversation far from done. They stood under a dim light, each with hands in their pockets, neither ready to say goodbye just yet. Eva broke the silence, her voice soft. "So, where do we go from here, Tori?" Tori gave a little shrug, though she felt something bright and hopeful stirring within her. "I guess we could start with coffee. Or we could just walk. I'd like that, just talking and seeing where it goes." They walked side by side, words flowing easily between them. And for the first time, Tori felt as though they were writing a new story, one no one else could ruin. As they walked, the night settled into a comfortable silence around them, broken only by their quiet conversation. Tori felt the weight that had been pressing on her for so long start to lift. It was strange to be with Eva like this, without the walls she'd spent years building. Every step seemed to chip away at her defenses, and she was finally okay with letting them crumble. They wandered down empty streets, past dimly lit storefronts and quiet houses, their breath misting in the chilly air. Tori caught a glimpse of her reflection in a shop window and almost didn't recognize herself. There was something about the woman looking back at her, a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Eva noticed her staring and nudged her with a smile. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Tori chuckled, her cheeks warming despite the cold. I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure what I expected tonight, but it wasn't this. Being here with you, talking like this, it feels right. She paused, feeling her words tangle in her throat. It feels like I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Eva's face softened, her eyes searching Tori's. Me too, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I kept wondering if I'd see you again. If I'd have the chance to explain, to say all the things I didn't get to say back then. I didn't know if you'd want to hear them. I didn't know either, Tori replied, her voice catching. But I'm glad I stayed. I needed to hear it. I think I needed to hear it more than I realized. They stopped under a street lamp, the soft glow casting a warm light over them. Eva reached out, her hand hovering just above Tori's, and after a moment's hesitation, she closed the distance, her fingers threading through Tori's. It was a simple touch, yet it sent a spark through Tori, grounding her in the present, in the possibility of a new beginning. Eva's gaze lingered on their joined hands. I don't know where this will go, but I'd like to find out, she said, her voice steady but filled with a quiet vulnerability. Tori nodded, her heart pounding. Me too. They continued walking, fingers entwined, the silence between them now filled with something warm and unspoken. The memories of high school, the hurt and misunderstandings, all seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the steady rhythm of their footsteps and the promise of what lay ahead. For the first time in a long time, Tori felt hope, a future not defined by the past, but by a chance to start fresh, with someone who understood her in a way no one else could. And as they walked into the night, hand in hand, she knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one she was finally ready to embrace. The two of them continued their walk, the town stretching out quietly around them, as if holding its breath. It felt surreal to Tori, almost like the world was giving them this moment, suspended in time, to figure things out. She could still see flashes of their younger selves in her mind, Eva laughing in the cafeteria, her head thrown back, that unguarded, genuine joy. The way she'd scrawl her initials in her notebook with little hearts. The glances they'd shared across classrooms, hallways. And, of course, the secret notes. Do you remember the day we were paired for that English project junior year? Eva asked, breaking the silence, her thumb gently brushing over Tori's hand. Tori laughed, shaking her head at the memory. You mean the day you were horrified because I suggested we ditch our research and base our project on song lyrics instead? Eva laughed. Yes. I remember thinking, this girl is going to get us both a failing grade. And then you actually convinced Mr. Wells it was a brilliant idea. They stopped in front of an old cafe that Tori recognized, even though it was different now. The lights were off inside, chairs stacked neatly on tables, but the sign still hung in the window, Eva and Rose's Coffee House. Tori felt her chest tighten. She looked over at Eva, who was staring at the sign with a soft, wistful smile. I used to come here a lot after high school, Eva murmured. It's funny, but I always thought that if you and I were still talking, maybe we'd have come here together. I'd sit by the window and just imagine that one day, you'd walk through the door. Tori swallowed, feeling the weight of all the years between them, of all the missed chances and silent hopes. She tightened her grip on Eva's hand. And all this time, I thought you'd forgotten me, Tori said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. Eva turned to face her, eyes searching Tori's. I never forgot you, Tori. I thought about you more than I can say. Every time I heard a song we used to talk about, or saw something that reminded me of you, it was like this little spark of what if. She paused, exhaling a soft sigh. But I was scared. I didn't think I'd ever get the chance to really tell you how sorry I was. Tori's heart raced, her own fears unraveling with each word Eva spoke. I thought you were just gone. Like maybe I'd just imagined all of it, and maybe you were never really interested. I mean, back then, well, it was easier to assume that than to get hurt again. Eva nodded, looking down. I know. And I don't blame you. I should have reached out, I could have found you. But I let other people's opinions. I let fear dictate everything I did. She let out a breath, looking back up at Tori. And I've regretted it ever since. They stood there, words falling away as they looked at each other. Tori felt something inside her shift, a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. There was something healing in Eva's gaze, something grounding and true. Maybe we don't have to keep living with regrets, Tori whispered. Maybe we can start over, even if it's just as friends. Eva smiled, her eyes lighting up. I'd like that. Friends. They laughed softly, but neither let go of the other's hand. And as they started to walk back toward the hotel, Tori felt a calm settle over her, a calm she hadn't felt in years. They had no promises, no labels, no pressure. Just a shared past that, somehow, was slowly stitching itself into something new. As they reached the entrance to the hotel, Eva looked at her, tilting her head. Do you think you'd ever want to grab a coffee sometime? Somewhere with a little less high school nostalgia. Tori grinned, nodding. I'd like that. And in that moment, she knew she'd finally closed a chapter she'd never thought would end, opening another she hadn't dared to hope for. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready. The reunion was in full swing by the time Tori and Eva walked back inside. The music was louder, the crowd looser, and people had grouped off into the clusters they always did, old friends, old flames, even the occasional argument over long-forgotten grudges. Eva nudged Tori, nodding toward the makeshift bar in the corner. You want to grab a drink? Definitely, Tori replied with a grin. I think I need it just to survive the night. As they made their way through the crowd, Tori felt more than a few eyes on them. People noticed Eva, of course, they always had. But seeing her with Tori must have caught them by surprise. A few whispers floated by, mostly from those who'd known them both in high school but never would have expected to see them together now. It was strange. Back then, Tori would have been mortified to be the center of attention, especially with someone like Eva. But tonight, she didn't care. Maybe it was the years that had passed, or the sense of peace she'd found from their conversation outside. Whatever it was, she felt lighter, as if she were finally allowed to be herself. They each grabbed a drink, finding a quieter corner where they could talk without shouting over the music. So, what have you been up to? Eva asked, taking a sip of her wine. Her expression was warm, curious, as if she genuinely wanted to know the answer. Oh, you know, the usual adult stuff, Tori replied with a shrug. I moved a few times, worked at some jobs that didn't really mean much to me. Got a dog last year. She laughed. Nothing spectacular, I guess. But I'm happy now. Eva's eye softened. That's all anyone can ask for, right? Tori nodded, then tilted her head toward Eva. What about you? I know you've been busy, a wedding, a divorce, all that. Eva chuckled, a little sheepishly. Yeah, life definitely had some twists I didn't expect. Diana and I, well, it was good for a while. But we realized we wanted different things. I thought she'd be my forever, you know. But sometimes things just don't work out the way you planned. Tori nodded, understanding the unspoken ache in those words. It's funny how life does that. Takes what we think we know and flips it upside down. They shared a quiet smile, a shared understanding hanging between them. Just as Tori was about to ask Eva about her art career, a passion she'd always admired, one of the guys from the football team stumbled up to them, sloshing his beer as he waved. Eva. Tori. Look at you two, he exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. Reunion queens, am I right? He looked between them, clearly struggling to focus his gaze. So, are you two, together? Eva rolled her eyes, laughing it off. We're just catching up, Nate. Trying to stay out of trouble. But Nate wasn't listening, already turning to call over his shoulder. Hey, guys. Guess who's back, the two rebels of our year. Tori could feel the heat rising to her face, but Eva just gave her a reassuring smile. Don't mind him. Some things never change. The awkwardness faded as quickly as it had come. For the rest of the night, Tori and Eva drifted through the crowd together, trading stories and laughing about the people they used to be. They bumped into teachers who barely remembered their names, dodged a few more overly friendly classmates, and even braved the dance floor, moving to songs that had been popular when they were kids. As the night wound down, Tori found herself walking outside with Eva again. The cool night air felt refreshing after the stuffy conference room, and she took a deep breath, letting it fill her lungs. There was a sense of finality to it, a chapter ending just as another one was beginning. Eva turned to her, hands tucked in her pockets, her eyes glinting with something unspoken. Thanks for coming tonight. I know it wasn't easy. Tori shrugged, a smile tugging at her lips. I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I got to see you again. Really? They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid between them settling softly, like the faint mist in the air. Finally, Eva stepped closer, her hand finding Tori's. Her fingers were warm against Tori's, and the touch felt like an unspoken promise. So, about that coffee? Eva asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Tori's heart leapt, and she nodded, unable to keep the grin off her face. It's a date. As they walked toward their cars, still hand in hand, Tori couldn't help but feel that, after all these years, she was finally finding her way back home.